Well, I'm working on some plugs today on this old deck box, which usually has a big uh, cowling right here to take air in or whatever. Um, it's for the vent for my galley right above my stove. Um, but anyway, these little I took this thing all apart. All these seams were coming apart on it, so I mixed up some epoxy and wood flour and filled them all in and clamped it all back together. I did this little repair on the edge here. This was all ate up, so I cut it off and put this new piece on there. And I'll have to kind of cut that out again, I guess. And then this piece, it was kind of ate up too, and so I ended up shaving it down, and I ended up cutting right through the old holes, so I had to do some little plugs right on the edge there. And but anyway, I'm going over this thing. I noticed, I bought my new plugs from Fisheries Supply. These little guys, half-inch plugs, and they're just not fitting in there so nice. Like, they're not going down very far. And, the technique on this is you put them in there with some glue, let them dry, and then you cut them off so they're smooth and then sand over it. But they're just not fitting in here so well in all these holes. So I'm going to go ahead. I've locked a half-inch drill bit in this old drill chuck that I have. And, I could probably just use a drill, but I'm going to do it real slow and carefully because I don't want to mess these holes up too much, and I don't want I don't see any need going into here with the big drill going real fast when I can just kind of, by hands, grind them out just a little bit more, make a bit more room for those plugs. But anyway, that's all we're working on. I'm going to go through and get the holes ready, and then I'll smear some dolphinite between this layer of fiberglass and this top piece of wood. And then I'll probably smear some dolphinite down in the screw holes, or dip the screws in dolphinite. Which is this stuff. I don't think they make it out of dolphins anymore. I don't know if they ever did, but whatever. Anyway, that's the plan. I'll show you what this thing looks like in an hour or two. Yeah, that way of doing it manually was taking forever, so I bust out my drill. And, went through these, cleaned them all, made them all a bit bigger. But this is what I was afraid of. When you're drilling a pre-existing hole, sometimes the bit will grab the edge of it a little bit. And it dug this one out a little bit on the side. But I'm going to go right ahead and proceed with plugging it. I think your options here would be to either plug it and then re-drill the hole right through the plug to get cleaned up again, using like a bigger plug. So kind of like re-drill maybe like a 3/4 inch hole or an inch, and then put a large plug through it. But what I'm going to do is just put in my little plug, and then I'll probably just mix up some more wood flour and epoxy, because I noticed there's a couple other little cracks here and there. So we'll probably go through, do these plugs. Of course, first I'll do my screws and dolphinite, get together, do my plugs, sand them down and everything, and then I'll probably throw a coat of varnish on it, and then I'll mix up some of that wood flour and epoxy. And once it's varnished, it'll be, with one coat on there, it'll be easier to clean off the excess, any varnish and epoxy, or sorry, wood flour and epoxy that kind of smears out of there. Anyway, talk to you soon. So this is coming along. I had to drill some holes in this board here to replace these holes that I'd cut through and plugged, and they're not totally straight. I'm not that happy with them, but I don't really have time to deal with it, so yeah, keep on moving. Yeah, I'd show you the consistency here. This dolphinite stuff is pretty much just like peanut butter. And, it just kind of smears right on here. And it never dries all the way either. It just kind of, when I put the other board on here, it'll smush out the sides, then I'll scrape off the excess, and it'll skin over, but it'll never totally dry. And as I'm doing this, I realized a better approach for me is to get my dolphinite in between this part and the fiberglass. And I'm kind of debating on the order here. I'm not sure. I might actually scrape that dolphinite off, get this all put together and plugged up, and then put this piece on last and caulk it in. So I'm kind of debating on my order here. I might go ahead and scrape all that dolphinite off, but anyway, I just want to show you the consistency here as I stumble my way through this project. So there's my layer of dolphinite on there. I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and slap this top piece on there and screw it down, and then get my plugs going. And then I'll worry about this little other piece last, because I want this whole thing to be disassemblable, I guess you could say. And yeah, because otherwise I guess you could glue the whole, like glue this into there and then into the other boards, but you'd never be able to take it apart. I guess without pulling all these plugs too, and who knows how that would fit. So I think my best bet is to get that done and then caulk this piece in on either side. And we'll see how it goes. Even though it's a bit of a pain, I'm going to take each screw and dunk it in that dolphinite to get it all in the threads, and that'll make sure that, you know, you never want any air in the gaps down in there, because the air could be filled in with condensation and then that could lead to some rot. It's better to have it all totally filled in with stuff. So we'll jam the dolphinite down in the screw. You know, the screw will get down in the hole and should seal it up that much better. It's coming right along, got the screws in there. You can see as I'm tightening these screws down, why is that so blurry? There it goes. It's kind of squishing all that extra dolphinite out the side. So I'm going to keep torquing those down, and then I'll recollect all that with my little scraper. Here's where we're at here, and it turned out alright, I guess. I wish I could have got the lid on a little tighter, or to pull down a little harder. But, you know, it's coming along. I'll sand all that out once this dries a bit. So where it is super thin like that, it will dry, and then I can just sand it. And then I still have some old varnish to sand off the corner here. But anyway, it's coming along. Alright, I'm just about ready to do some plug-in here. And before I do, I'm going to go through, and I've done this on most of these already, but I'm going to scrape the last little bit of dolphinite from the inside edge of that hole. And that way it'll, you know, I don't want any dolphinite on there, because I'll be gluing these plugs in, and I don't know how the glue would bond to the dolphinite, so I have to scrape it off along the edges. But, you know, if there's some dolphinite on the screw, I figure that's totally fine, because it's always kind of a pain when you take plugs apart if there's all kinds of glue down in the little slit on the screw. And who knows, maybe the little dolphinite residue on that metal will prevent the glue from sticking. I guess we'll see. Alright, so I got all my plugs in there, and now I'll probably take a screwdriver and scrape up some of that excess glue around there. Alright, and so there we are with a little scraping of the glue, and now I'm going to grab some wood flour, which is just mahogany that's been ground into a powder, and I'm going to pack some of that in around all those plugs. And I'm hoping that will help cover that the light color of the glue, because that's a little lighter than I wanted. I ended up using some of this DAP glue, which I've got a bunch of toothpicks and aluminum foil jammed in the lid to keep it fresh. This Gorilla Glue seemed a little bit too white in color. It stood out a little too much. I used it on one plug and I wiped it all off. It was just too white. Anyway, I'll grab that wood flour and see how that looks. So here's what the wood flour looks like. You'll see it's got such a similar color to the mahogany wood that I'm working with here, which is Honduran mahogany. And yeah, I'm going to jam some of this in around those plugs and go from there. So I made little mounds of powder on each of those, and then I worked my way around with a screwdriver doing like kind of this type of thing, you know, packing it all in there. And I think that's pretty good for now. Probably wait till this dries. And yeah, I'll show you what happens next when it's that time.